Attention, all Louis Le Vau listeners. Louis needs your help in defeating the SJW. Send an email to louislevauyt@gmail.com. Be sure to provide your 16-digit credit card number with expiration date and the 3-digit security code on the back. Also be sure to include your first and last name. That way Louis knows who to thank for your support. If you don't want to do that, head on over to Play Asia, Louis' affiliate. Check out the games and other merchandise there and see if any of it stands out to you, and if it does, buy it right there and then with that credit card information. If you don't want to buy anything from Play Asia, head on over to J-List, as many have in December. Take a look around, find something that's going to make you happy, and buy it. Like I said, using that credit card information. All the links can be found in the description.
So this is Louis, and I need a cup of coffee.
Approximately 10 hours later.
In the long run, I don't think that we, our side, the anti-SJWs, are going to win the culture war in terms of media. We might have our own areas in which merit can actually thrive and capitalism can actually thrive, such as with so-called Comicsgate, in that Ethan Van Sciver and Richard Meyer and others have put their own comics out there and have thrived and have made hundreds of thousands of dollars in return. You can look at BitChute, which is growing, Minds, which is growing, Gab, which is very much growing and doing well, although there's companies going after it which are loyal and subservient to the progressives. Gab is currently in trouble because of that. Not that they're bending the knee or giving up, thankfully, but they are in trouble because of that. This is the issue. We are in a culture war, and in my opinion, I am on the losing side of it. And the reason I say that is because ultimately I think the progressives, as they're doing to Marvel Comics and comic books in general, they have hitched themselves to something that they will never detach themselves from. And the industry itself is unwilling to force them out. And because of that, the industry is going to die. That is very much happening in Western comic books, or just what could be described as comic books. And I say that to separate it from manga, which is doing very well right now. That's actually a different video at a future time, where I talk about the fact that American culture, in large part, is stalling out. But that, like I said, is a different video for a separate time. For right now, I want to introduce the video I did, which is the inconsequential death of Western gaming, where, and I did a future video that was the inconsequential death of Western media, but I don't think that video was as provocative as the original. I illuminate the fact that this is not just contained within gaming, that it is a whole bunch of different, it's television, it's film, it's gaming, it's comics, it's everything, it's fiction, even in fictional novels in the West. Anywhere you look in terms of Western entertainment media, there is a serious problem. And one of the things that it has in common is progressivism, social justice, which is the cultural hegemon at this point in the West. And I know people will deny that, and that's fine. Go ahead and deny it. I don't care. That was the whole point of the inconsequential death of Western gaming. The video I did was, despite what you might think, this is the track we're on. This is the future we have, and regardless of what you want to say to me, nothing's changing currently. And it's not growing. It's not. There are instances, such as with Rockstar Games and other exceptions, that are doing well, but if you look at the industry as a whole, it would be, as Richard Meyer described it in terms of comics, as sick. And I think that is a very concise way of putting it. I feel the same way about gaming. And you could easily describe that in fiction, novels, film, television, wherever you want to look. These industries are sick. Western media is sick. And one of the reasons for that sickness is, in my opinion, progressivism. Dismiss that, that's fine. Okay. You aren't convinced? Fine. Let's cite another video. Out of ideas, out of time. Or was it out of time, out of ideas? I think that might have been the title. But I could describe another company by that, and that's going to be the core topic of this video. But for the sake of coherence, go watch that video, and then go read this article from the other day, of which it was funny because I had people telling me that there was a path forward for Telltale. Legitimately, I had people coming to me, telling me that despite the fact that I had called it 100% on Telltale, I could not have been more correct. Maybe by a slight degree, I could have been possibly more on point for what I called however many years ago. It was well over a year ago I made that video in particular, but I was talking about this in 2015. When I started this fucking channel, I was talking about this. And I was right. Telltale is not an isolated incident. They're not one company that failed because of, oh man, there was so much turnover, and oh man, the corporate culture was so bad, blah, 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 blah. Like, there's not crunch at every fucking game studio. Spare me the bullshit. You can add a preface to this company's failure. But what it was, in effect, in a concise way of putting it, was get woke, go broke. That was Telltale. They decided to push the right politics and not the right content. They decided that they were going to virtue signal and not innovate. And in the end, their company failed because they ran out of contracts, they ran out of investment, and they didn't sell shit. Unlike BioWare, which has a parent company that can continue to shell out to maintain its very existence, because otherwise it would be completely bankrupt by this point. And I know that for a fact. I know that for a fact. Without EA, BioWare would not exist anymore. We would be reading this article about BioWare, where it's laid off every single employee, and it is done. It has a major class action lawsuit against it for its layoffs, and it's never going to be able to pay shit because it has no investment. And it has no IPs, no assets to sell in terms of bankruptcy. So guess what? It has no way to pay its debt and no means by which to obtain investment. It has no way to go forward as a company. It is done. You can sit there and tell me I'm wrong, as people did in 2015, as they did last year. You can go ahead and do that. It doesn't mean anything to me. I am right. And I will continue to be right far into the future. But I'm going to put that aside for now, and we're actually going to get into this topic. That was preface for this, because I'm here with yet another prediction. I'm not going to be as strong on this, because there's contradictory evidence, and part of me doesn't want this to be true, but the issue is that I can recognize similar qualities, and I can recognize issues that have been seen in previous companies that no longer exist, that I've already named. And you can sit here and say, Louis, you may have been right then, if I'll even admit to that, as many people don't. But here I think you're wrong. And all I'm going to say to you is, okay, I'm not even going to fight you on it. You leave a comment, that's fine. You're not going to get a reply from me. I'm just going to preach to the choir. And in however much time that passes and I get proven to be right, so be it. I'm not going to make a response video like I didn't do with Telltale. I'll talk about it here, but I'm not going to make a video talking about how I was right. I'm not. I started scripting it. I said, fuck this. Fuck this. This is just me saying, hey, I was right and here's how. And it's just like, well, I'm not going to change anybody's minds with this. I'm not going to do, nothing's going to come of this. So, whatever. Not going to bother. But in this instance, I'm going to bother. I'm going to tell you about what I think. And it has to do with Remedy. Now, Remedy is a company that I have had a personal investment in for a long time, but not recently. Recently, I have been kind of down on the company, and I haven't really been interested in what it's been producing. This is the company, headed, I still believe, by Sam Lake. He's still instrumental to the company. Sam Lake was the original model and the original writer and the original, I believe, producer of Max Payne. Maybe also the writer, if I didn't already say that. He created Max Payne. I'm not sure of the exact year but I can tell you that it was right around Y2K that the original Max Payne came out. And I was still fairly young then, about 10 years old, right around there. And I was very much a fan of the original Max Payne. I bought it right off the shelf, brand new, for PC. I played it, I loved the game, and at that point I became a fan of Rockstar. And I had previously played Grand Theft Auto, but when I played Max Payne, the original one, I became a big fan of Rockstar, and that included Remedy, which developed it. Remedy split off from Rockstar, I believe, right before or right around Max Payne 2. I think they had some kind of role in Max Payne 2, but it wasn't in its entirety a Remedy game. I'd have to go back and look. I can't quite remember, but I know right around there was when the break happened. And they went off, and for a while they didn't do anything, as far as I can recall. Remedy didn't really do much of anything. It was just its own dev studio, and it had eventually signed up with Microsoft, and it started making games for Xbox. And one of those games was Alan Wake. Now, I own Alan Wake, but I have not played it. And the main reason is that I don't really have a lot of interest in that genre of games. I've been told that it is a very good game, and I'm not going to dispute that. But what I am going to dispute here is this claim, and that is from both game journos and from Microsoft spokesmen, who have said that Alan Wake has been a smash hit on Xbox and just in the gaming industry in general. One of the problems that you're going to run into in the gaming industry, and in probably any industry, is fluff. And what I mean by that is the fluffing of numbers. You do what you can in a dishonest fashion, ultimately dishonest fashion, to fluff up numbers, to make them look better than what they actually are. And there's multiple reasons for doing that. Appeasing shareholders, trying to win investment for future products and projects, but mainly to keep the perception of success. It's important for companies to maintain the perception of profitability and success. It's what keeps you in the black. Not the only thing, obviously. Obviously, you have to be profitable to stay in the black, but even if you're in the red and you're not a profitable company, the perception of failure dooms you. It's what makes you look like a shitty investment to make, and so people stay away from you. One of the things that companies do is they will internally describe what the situation is, but externally they'll say something else, and that's what you're seeing here with Alan Wake. You have Microsoft spokesman presenting the idea that Alan Wake, as a franchise, is successful for Microsoft as an investment, because they have invested in Remedy as a company, but ultimately the numbers are a lot more questionable than what is being presented. So here's a contradictory article from 2010 that you can compare to the article that I just showed you that says, hey man, everything's good. This is a smash hit, man. What are you talking about? Hey man, we like this investment. Remedy, Alan Wake, this is great. You look at these numbers and they don't show success. You have just a small blip, small blurb, one sentence even, from an article that says, hey, the sales figures for Alan Wake are actually kind of bad. Now, this is just one article. That's nothing. What does it matter that some firm, some outside firm, crunched the numbers and said, hey, actually, the sales aren't good, despite what's being said? Then we go back to this article, and we just look at it with a more skeptical eye. We ask, okay, is Alan Wake as a series actually successful? And when you look at the article itself, you realize that when they say Alan Wake, they mean Alan Wake and Alan Wake American Nightmare, which is 2 games. That's not one game, that's 2 games. So between 2 games, 2 separate products, 2 separate projects, you had 4.5 million sales, which is not a success by AAA measure. That's very much success between 2 indie games, but not a AAA game. The thing is, we have no idea how much money was spent on Alan Wake, and these are numbers that I guarantee you are not going to be accurately put out there for people to see. Remedy is not going to actually say how much they spent on these 2 games. They're going to let Microsoft fluff up the numbers for the sake of maintaining the perception of success. Again, I'll say, this doesn't mean that Alan Wake itself was a bad game, or that the spin-off/sequel they're including in this is necessarily bad either. I'm not commenting on the quality of the games. What I'm saying is that there's a serious question as to whether they were actually successful. And if it was successful, let's say like Rockstar is, Rockstar with Grand Theft Auto 5 is every goddamn day bragging, not only to journos, but to investors, bragging about the success of their games. They're out there going, look at our fucking profitability. You know, we had to buy a whole new office building because in our current offices, it is ground floor to the top floor, stacks of cash, pallets of money. We had to buy a whole new office because our old one is now ostensibly a vault for all of our fucking money. Our bank is no longer accepting all the money we're making. When you're in that kind of financial situation, there's no reason not to be transparent. There's no reason not to just showcase to everyone how fucking profitable you are. And as far as I can tell, Rockstar has been mainly forthcoming with the fact that they are extremely profitable. They have no reason to lie. But when your numbers aren't great, you have every incentive to lie. And that's what you see in this article, which in many ways is just sucking the dick of Microsoft and of Remedy. It begs the question why. And I don't think that it's just random. I don't think that Eddie Marcook, or whatever the fuck this guy's name is, just woke up one day and decided that he was going to present a lie to the public and do so for no reason. However, Alan Wake is one game, and I'll call it a success for the sake of argument. I'll say, you know what? I'm wrong. Alan Wake, the original, made $4.5 million, and let's say the sequel sold near that amount. Let's just concede that. 2010 and whatever the sequel was, which 8 years ago, okay? Their very next title was Quantum Break. And Quantum Break, I can tell you, they overspent on. There's no doubt in my mind that they massively overspent on this game. And the reason is that it was flashy. It hired already famous actors to play roles, to portray characters. And it relied on graphics rather than anything else. It was a horrifically mediocre game. Horrifically mediocre. I played it all the way through, and at the end I couldn't believe it. I said to myself after playing it, this is an example of what is wrong with gaming. This is a game that wants to be a movie and would be a shitty movie. That is hiring somewhat competent television actors. Already famous in some instances. You had the guy whose name I forget who played the villain in this, who I guarantee you, who was paid a premium to be in this game. Because he was already famous when this game was in development. And he wasn't the only already known actor to be in this, movie game. I can guarantee you they overspent on this game. It relied too heavily on graphics. And in the end, how did it do? How did it do? Was it a success? Was it mediocre in terms of sales? Like it's the quality of the game itself? Or was it predictably bad? Because it's a generic fucking shooter that had nothing going for it. Time manipulation is nothing new. Graphically heavy games are nothing new. Actors in the game are nothing new. Just because you had fucking Littlefinger in this game doesn't mean shit to anybody. How did it do? It did terrible. By all accounts, Quantum Break did so badly on consoles that they specifically ported it to Steam. And this is what's being alleged. Not from me, but from journos. It was ported to Steam just to fluff the numbers. Just to make it look less like a massive commercial failure. And like I said, this was not a game that I believe that they did on the cheap. I believe they heavily overspent on this game. Now that creates a problem. And that problem is profitability. You're relying on I think, former developer, now just publisher, Microsoft, for your income. You are now reliant on them. Why? You put out a game that bombed. A game you overspent on that bombed. The sales that you had 8 years ago are spent by this point. Maybe you have some kind of remaining profitability with that IP you own, but it's not sustainable. Like Telltale, it is not sustainable on its face. You are too big of a studio. You have too much overhead in terms of cost to maintain this without the direct investment from Microsoft, which is why you continue to rely on them for income. What does Microsoft do on your behalf? They fluff the numbers. They tell the press, oh man, Quantum Break exceeded our expectations. That was a lie. That's a lie. I know it's a lie. I can't prove to you that I know that it's a lie, but I know that internally Microsoft was not satisfied with the sales of Quantum Break. You know why? It wasn't a commercial success. And there's allegations from the press itself, it was ported to Steam just to fluff the numbers, just to make it look less like a fucking bomb, which was overspent on. EA does this all the time. They do that with BioWare constantly. The game barely makes back, if even that, what was spent on it. And EA comes out and said, oh man, look, in this perspective it's a success, in that perspective it's a success. I need you to think of it as a success, despite the fact that it's a bomb and has ruined the franchise, as it was with Andromeda and Inquisition. You can say otherwise. Go ahead and say otherwise. I don't care. But I'm just trying to tell you that this is an actual strategy in gaming. Perception of success. It is something that many developers, but mainly publishers, do to continue the idea of that they are a good investment. It's why you see companies like EA so overly reliant on microtransactions. That is what they are showing to their shareholders. It's what they're showing to their investors. They aren't going to show you the sales figures of fucking Battlefield 5. They're going to show you what they're making in terms of the microtransactions on FIFA and Battlefield 5 and other games. Because that's where they're currently making a lot of money, and it's steady income. It's income that they can present to shareholders. They don't want to showcase the fact that for years and years, FIFA as a franchise is selling less and less. Same with Battlefield. And guess what? The Sims are not doing well, and you look at anything from Axis, SimCity's done. The Sims, it's running out of time, running out of ideas. Same spot that Telltale was in. Same thing. It's millions of sales more, but it is in the same position. And you can look at any other fucking franchise being put out by EA. Same goddamn position. Sequel, downward trajectory in terms of sales. It's not the same with every studio and every franchise, but with EA, it's something that's consistent with so many of their different franchises. And that's what they're not showing their investors. They're showing them the microtransactions. They're showing them the profit they're making off of selling people digital items. This is all fluff. It's all for the sake of perception and investment. You have to show profitability, sustainable profitability, long-term profitability. You have to, if you can't prove it, you have to feign it. You have to pretend. You have to become an actor and state that, even if you can't directly prove it. And none of these companies are transparent. None of them, even including Rockstar and Take-Two, or 2K, so to say. None of them are actually transparent. You just have conference calls with the head of studios and the head of the publishers and that, where they make statements about, exceeding expectations or underperformance. Those are the kind of statements you get. That's the kind of transparency you're going to get. The conference calls. And so all of that I've just said was a massive preface to this article, which is on their very next game, which is Control, either third or first-person shooter that is very much a psychological kind of game, like everything else practically that Remedy has produced. in which they are stressing the fact, they're stressing this, not just Variety here, Remedy is stressing that this is going to be a game with an actress from their last game, which was a massive failure. Same actress from that is now portraying a character in this game, Control, and it is a female. Some of you are going to dismiss this as being of note, but you would be mistaken. This is important because, like I said in the past, this all goes one way, in terms of like diversity and inclusion and whatever other progressive talking point you want to drop, you know, the code words you want to drop. It all goes one way. You create a female protagonist for your game, in which I can name drop countless different examples of that not selling games. This has been tried by studios of similar size, and even in which case by larger studios, and it has not worked out. It has not worked. This is not a selling point. This is not something that is going to generate you profit. It may in fact be a detriment to the game. Now I know the natural knee-jerk reaction is going to be either to dismiss that, to claim otherwise, or to say that I'm just a misogynist and blah, 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 blah. But the facts are as they are. And I've been saying this for a very, very long time in terms of the idea of a female lead. I'm not even against the idea of a female lead. But let me see if I can dig up these numbers. I studied these a long time ago. And it was the fact that in Mass Effect 1 and I believe 2, and even I'll see if I can find the numbers for 3 as well, most players played as male Shepard. I played as FemShep, female Shepard. I liked FemShep, especially Renegade FemShep. I liked Mass Effect as a series. I used to be a BioWare fanboy. The issue is that most people that played Mass Effect, most people, regardless of which Mass Effect, played as a male protagonist. Because most people that play shooters are men. Most. The majority. That is demonstrable and has always been true. The hefty majority of people that play shooters are male. And that will, quote me, never change. Because it has never changed. You can invent numbers all you like. Make ridiculous arguments all you like. Say whatever you'd like to. Those figures and that statistic and that fact will never change. This is going to be an interruption to this already long commentary, and for that I apologize. But after I recorded this commentary, I went to look up the statistics to showcase to you what the actual numbers were. You know, what am I basing my point on in this? Of this game is not going to sell. It actually matters if you have a male or female protagonist. Who actually plays first-person shooters? I made that point. I went to go look up the actual numbers because I can showcase to you why I'm right. I can prove to you why I am making this argument. It took me, and I am not kidding you, half an hour to find the actual numbers. Half an hour to find what used to take me seconds in terms of the actual numbers of who plays what in gaming. And believe me when I say, these numbers have not changed. The only thing that has changed is who plays MMOs and what qualifies as an MMO. That has changed. But in terms of shooters, sports games, racing games, blah, 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 the numbers have stayed consistent. These numbers are buried in an avalanche of bullshit in terms of the Google results. Google is biasing their results. It used to take me 5 seconds flat to find these fucking statistics. It just took me half a goddamn hour. And it was in one of the articles of which it is showcasing a biased result. It's showcasing this bullshit of, you know, equality and the ESA numbers and all this bullshit about women in games. I found it in that article from Kotaku, of all places, where it links you to the actual numbers. The reason I'm notably upset at this moment is because these numbers are buried now in Google. They're buried. There's a reason why it took me fucking half an hour to get these numbers. So let's go through them. That's what I'm going to do here. We're going to stop. I'm going to hold up this entire commentary of mine, which is already long. We're going to go through the fucking numbers. Because apparently Google doesn't want you to see these numbers, just like the ESA. the Electronic Software Association, which is the parent company of the ESRB. They don't want you to see these statistics. And so I'm going to take the time to showcase them to you. So what percentage of females play football games, play hockey games, play probably WWE games, play games related to sports? 2%, according to this study. And that is consistent. How many females play tactical shooter games, such as, let's say, I believe Rainbow Six Siege? 4%. How about first-person shooters like Call of Duty and all the other first-person shooters? How many play first-person shooters? 7% of players are female. What about grand strategy? Probably, I would imagine, like Total War. I think that's what that would be considered. 7%. Well, what about MOBA games? Like all the games that I don't play, that were a big flash in the pan a couple of years ago, which I think are still big to some degree now. 10%. How about turn-based strategy games, such as, let's say, Civilization or many others? And there's a bunch of ones. XCOM, I believe, is a big one too, I think. But there's a bunch of different type of turn-based strategy games that are usually top-down style. How many there? 11%. How about open world games? Open world, probably including the Assassin's Creed game that I just bought. 14%. How about MMOs and sci-fi games? 14%. How about action-adventure games like Tomb Raider? 18%. How about sandbox games? 18%. How about city-building games like The Sims, which is now dead? 22%. How about platformer games, which are fairly common on console, including even on Nintendo? 25%. How about survival games? 25%. How about Western casual RPGs, as people would refer to them as? 26%. How about import Japanese games? 33%. How about MMOs high fantasy, like World of Warcraft? 36%. One of the things that you're going to see is that outside of phone games, like Match 3, which I don't even know what that is, and farm simulation / family simulation, which I think maybe includes The Sims, that's the only area where they have a majority. The only area. Every other genre of game is majority male. And outside of, let's say, the high 30s, that's the top that you get for anything that is other than puzzle games. You know who plays the heavy bulk of video games? Men. You know who's a minority in playing video games? And in some cases, a fringe group? Women. These numbers are consistent. The only thing that has changed, to my knowledge, is MMOs. That's the only numbers that have gone up to that degree. And maybe The Sims, depending on how you fucking categorize it. Outside of that, everything is male-dominated. Everything. Every fucking category, every genre, male-dominated. Everything. With the exception of fucking phone-based and Facebook-based puzzle games and farm simulators or fucking whatever bullshit that is not something you're picking off a store shelf at GameStop. Something you're not playing on PlayStation or PC outside of on Facebook. Shit that you play on your phone? That. And why I'm mentioning this is I know that there was a conversation at Remedy. I know that this happened. I might as well have been a fly on the wall. I know this happened. There was a conversation as to who their protagonist would be in control. Would it be male? Would it be female? And they decided it would be female. They had that conversation. And in that conversation, somebody brought up representation. Someone brought up 41% of people playing third-person shooters and shooters in general, based on the ESA numbers, are women. That conversation happened. Those talking points were dropped. And that is the foundation in which this was decided. No one said what I'm saying to you. No one said to you, hey guys, what the fuck are you even talking about? Look at these numbers as to who is actually going to play our games. It is overwhelmingly going to be men. Overwhelmingly. This is a bad idea. It is not a selling point. It is not something that is going to generate sales. In fact, it is going to lessen our sales. But I will just set that aside and let you ponder that, and we will get back to my already long commentary. Those that play shooters are men, and when you make a game of that genre and you create a female protagonist, you are already handicapping yourself, in my view. The numbers don't bear out the other way. They showcase continuous failure, continuous problems. The only notable example that anyone could give that breaks from that would probably be Tomb Raider, the reboot, the last 3 games that have come out, which have not been smashing successes, but have been successful. I'm not going to dispute that, but have not been overwhelmingly successful. But in this way, you have already handicapped yourself. As a studio that is reliant on outside investment, reliant on it, dependent on it, this is not a good idea. And this is not innovation, by the way. I understand that with Sam Lake, with Remedy, the genre that this is in is something that it specializes in. But this isn't innovation, in my view. I could be wrong. Maybe this is the most innovative game in the last goddamn decade. Maybe I have to eat crow in every regard. But I don't think so. I don't think that this is going to turn out in the way they think it's going to. Or at least I perceive them to think it's going to. I think that this is not going to work. Now, I have to say that they aren't overly stressing, virtue signaling, that they have a female lead in their next game. They aren't, to that degree, advertising it in a negative, like social justice progressive way. They aren't doing that. However, it is notable that they are in fact stressing that. They are in fact using that as a selling point. They are using that as how the game should be perceived. And I will say once again that for the genre that we have here, that is not a selling point. And I'm telling you that it's not because I dislike female protagonists. I play as female protagonists even within these genres of games. Okay? That is true for me. It's not always true, but I don't mind playing female protagonists in these games. In games, or even in this genre of games. I'm not against that. But what I am telling you is that it is not a selling point. The reason is, the majority of the people playing these games are men, the opposite gender. And those men, when given the option, don't play as women. They play as men. So I'm going to conclude this by saying that in the Western industry, what we need to see from every dev studio is focused innovation, is looking at what is being done in the market now and attempting something different, or attempting to look at something that has worked and create something that is derivative of that, but is in fact original. Not entirely original, it could be derivative, but it is unique. Not enough game studios are doing that. They're not innovating. We see innovation, slight innovation from foreign markets, and they've been heavily rewarded because of that, but we don't see that in the Western industry. There's only tepid, tacit innovation. Weird innovation where it's trial and error, a lot of error, but eventually, 15 million monkeys in a room figure it out. They somehow manage to find something that isn't going to result in failure. Assassin's Creed managed to do that as a franchise. Say whatever you want to about it. Say whatever you want to about Assassin's Creed. It has managed to innovate to some degree. Is it derivative? Absolutely. But is it some innovation? Yes. Is it completely original? No. But it is resulting in success. The issue is, however, that is it enough to save the studio? Is it enough to save the publisher? Is it enough to save the industry? Nope. Absolutely not. But I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening.